Welcome to PAATH History. Today we are going to discuss about the rise of Magadha from Bimbisāra to Aśoka. According to the traditional literatures like Anguttara Nikaya, 16 large states or Mahajanapadas existed in India in 6th century BCE. Kashi, which was most important at first, lost its position to Koshala and Magadha. These two kingdoms fight with each other for control of the Ganga basin. In the 6th century BCE, only 4 states remained important. These are Kashi, Koshala, Magadha, and Vajjian confederacy. They fought for political hegemony for nearly 100 years. Eventually, Magadha emerged victorious and became the center of political activity in North India. What were the causes behind the rise of Magadha? Why of all the Janapadas, Magadha alone rose to prominence and became the seat of a powerful monarchy and the nucleus of an extensive empire is an interesting question. It would be superficial and puerile to ascribe the rise and expansion of Magadha solely to the abilities and ambitions of such individual rulers as Bimbisāra, Ajātaśatru, and Mahapadmananda. Even though incompetent rulers succeeded both Ajātaśatru and Mahapadma, Magadha continued to grow in strength and increase in extent. There were certain deeper causes behind the success of Magadha. Its favorable geographical position enabled it to control the whole middle Gangetic plain, and its rich alluvial soil provided a strong agricultural base. The thick forests beyond Gaya in South Bihar supplied both timber for buildings and elephants for the army. What is probably most important is that Magadha controlled the supply of the richest deposits of copper and iron ores available to the southeast in the hills beyond Gaya. This rendered possible the manufacture of better weapons and implements which were systematically used to clear the land and bring it under the plough. Magadha could thus improve its military technology and can be inferred from the use of superior weapons of war like Rathamushala, Mahashilakantaka, etc. Ministers like Basakara, Sunidha played an important role. Now we are going to discuss about the geography. Rajagriha, which remained the capital of Magadha up to the time of Ajātaśatru, was surrounded by an easily defended perimeter of hills fortified with cyclopean walls 40 km in length. The city had an excellent supply of water from both hot and cold streams and could resist enemy attack indefinitely. Initially, Magadha was not suitably placed on the trade route, but during the time of Ajātaśatru, the shift of capital to Pataliputra gave it control over the river traffic. The rapid development and consolidation of the pre-Mauryan states owed a great deal to the land taxes, which became a substantial and permanent source of income for the exchequer. The state treasury was further replenished by some oppressive taxation measures. At least 2 types of officers, Tundiyas and Akashiyas, as described in the Jataka as collecting taxes from the people either by beating or binding them. Connected with the growth of the taxation system was the development of the state machinery. The real and most effective prop of the state organization was the standing army, whose origin may be traced back to the earlier period and whose growth was promoted by socio-economic developments in the age of the Buddha. All these factors account for the expansion and stability of Magadha, which gradually swallowed the other contemporary states. According to the Purana, the Bharahadratha dynasty was ruling Magadha in the first half of the 6th century BCE. Then the Pradot dynasty and Śaiśunāga Dynasty came to the power respectively. But historians rejected this theory and they followed the version of the Buddhist texts. According to the Mahavangsha, the first important ruler of Magadha was Bimbisāra, who ascended the throne in 585 BCE when he was just 15 years old. According to Buddhacharita by Aśoka, he belonged to the Haryanka dynasty. His father's name was Vajjian. Although Bimbisāra was a patron of Buddhism, but his lineage is not discussed in Buddhist sources. He is described as Sainya, or with an army, being perhaps the first king to have a regular standing army. The kings of Magadha and Koshala started as relatively unaggressive rulers. Both patronized the new religious preachers. Both of them entered into a matrimonial alliance between themselves. Koshala king Prasenjit's sister, Koshala Devi, was the wife of Bimbisāra, who received Kashi village as dowry. Bimbisāra arranged marriages with several other royal houses of the time. He married Chellana, the daughter of the Lichavi chief Chetaka. Khema, another wife of the king, was daughter of the king of Madra. Dynastic marriages promoted goodwill between Bimbisāra and contemporary rulers and thus strengthened his position. Bimbisāra also tried to win the friendship of Pradot. He was the king of Avanti, for whose medical assistance he sent his personal physician Jivaka to Ujjain. Bimbisāra took aggressive policy just once. According to the Digha Nikaya and the Mahabhagga, the only Mahajanapada which was a victim of Bimbisāra's aggression was Anga. It was annexed to Magadha. The friendly relations that subsisted between Magadha and Koshala left their rulers free to fight the tribes which lived in forest region of the two kingdoms. Bimbisāra was succeeded by his son Ajātaśatru. The beginning of the conflict between Koshala and Magadha took place in the time of Ajātaśatru, who, according to the Buddhist texts, out of ambition to become king, imprisoned his father Bimbisāra in a dungeon and then killed him. His Koshalan wife, who could not bear the shock of her husband's murder, soon joined him in death. Reacting to this, Prasenjit revoked the gift of the Kashi village, which had formed part of his sister's dowry, and whose importance lay not in its revenue but in its trade potential. Therefore, war took place between Ajātaśatru and Prasenjit. Several battles were fought without lasting success for either. According to some Buddhist texts, ultimately Prasenjit was betrayed by his own minister, Dirghacharayana, who handed the royal insignia to Prasenjit's son and the military command to Vidudava, while the king was busy praying what would prove to be his final visit to the Buddha. The fugitive ruler, accompanied by a servant woman, reached Rajagriha one night after the gates had been shut and died of exhaustion. Ajātaśatru gave him a state funeral and, being his nephew, claimed his kingdom in the bargain, as it were. An untimely flood in the river Rapti drowned Vidudava along with his army, and the Koshala kingdom was annexed to Magadha without a battle. Ajātaśatru opposed the tribal confederacy of the Vajjis, headed by the Lichavis of Vaishali, accompanied by the Mallakis. The details picture was drawn in the Jain text Bhagavati Sutra and also in Nirayavali Sutra. According to H.C. Raychaudhuri, this was part of the general monarchical antagonism against the tribal politics. Vidudava had already waged a direct war on the Shakyans and bathed his throne in Shakyan blood. It was left to Ajātaśatru to destroy the power of the Lichavis. The Mallas, Lichavis and similar tribes were great impediments in the growth of monarchy, whose real strength lay in well-organized standing armies which had no tribal character. The immediate pretext of the war was that the traders complained of double imposts collected by the Lichavis and by the Magadhan king, both claiming full control of the river Ganga. The first step was the setting up of a fortified stockade at Patoligama, later known as Pataliputra, now Patna, at the confluence of three rivers, the Ganga, Son and Gandaka. A Brahmana minister, Vassakara, sent by Ajātaśatru to sow internal discord among the Lichavis, succeeded in setting one tribal chief against the other by encouraging each chief to claim more than his due. The oligarchs were made to neglect tribal meetings, collective military drill, and the tribal judicial assembly, which completely undermined tribal solidarity. When the situation was ripe, Vassakara sent word to Ajātaśatru, who marched into Vaishali to gain an easy victory. The fall of the Lichavis must not be attributed only to internal dissensions engineered by an individual minister. The tribe decayed under the influence of wealth collected through taxes and tribute and retained as private property by the oligarchs. Tribal life was disrupted before Ajātaśatru's agent was sent on commission. The rise of such an outstanding religious teacher as Mahavira among the Lichavis and the seeking of employment by the two Mallas, Bandhula and Karayan, with the king of Koshala suggest that tribal life had already ceased to give satisfaction to the ablest members of the tribe. Through his conquests, Ajātaśatru extended the frontiers of the Magadhan kingdom and laid the foundations of what later became an empire. But much was left for his successors to do. The Majjhima Nikaya makes a passing reference to the Avanti king Pradhat's intention to invade Magadha, which prompted Ajātaśatru to refortify Rajagriha. But Avanti, with its capital at Ujjain, was annexed to the Magadhan kingdom after the reign of Ajātaśatru. The Vatsa king Udayana is known for his quarrel with Pradhat of Ujjain and for the cycle of romance relating to him and his queen Vasavadatta, later immortalized by Bhash, one of ancient India's foremost dramatists. But nothing is known about the amalgamation of Vatsha with Magadha. The Purus, Shurasenas and Matsyas, the tribal states of Vedic origin, did not last beyond the 4th century BCE. Ajātaśatru died in 461 BCE. One who had killed his father to seize the throne was succeeded by 5 kings, all of whom, according to the Sri Lankan Buddhist chronicle Mahavamsa, ascended the throne after killing their fathers. The accession of 5 parricides in quick succession roused the indignation of the people, who perhaps deposed the last in 413 BCE and made Śaiśunāga a viceroy of Benares, the king. The Śaiśunāga Dynasty ruled for half a century, finally gave way to the usurper Mahapadmananda. The Nanda Dynasty ruled until around 323 BCE. Mahapadma himself is described later in the Puranas as the destroyer of all Kshatriyas. He is also credited with the final overthrow of the contemporary royal houses. The Nandas, therefore, are sometimes described as the first empire builders of India. They inherited the large kingdom of Magadha and extended it to yet more distant frontiers through their fabulous wealth and a vast army. That the Nandas controlled some parts of Kalinga is borne out by the Hathigumpha inscription of King Kharvela, assigned to the middle of the 1st century BCE. Parts of the Deccan may also have formed part of the Magadhan Empire. Several Mysore inscriptions of the 12th century indicate that the southern portion of the Kuntala or Kundina region in Maharashtra was under the Nanda control, but those late records may not be reliable. After the overthrow of the Nanda dynasty at Magadha, the Mauryas rose to prominence. Chandragupta Maurya, the founder of the Mauryan Dynasty, succeeded to the Nanda throne in about 324 BCE at the age of 25. The origin and early life of Chandragupta remain obscure, though according to the prevalent view, he belonged to the Maurya tribe and his caste was low. But H.C. Raychaudhuri proved in his book named The Political History of Ancient India that he was a Kshatriya. Chandragupta, suppose for the first time, conquered South India except the extreme southern part. Around 300 BCE, he was succeeded by his son Bimbisāra. Historians said that he did not extend the empire. His son Aśoka conquered Kalinga, the ever-remained hostile part of India. Though Dr. Bhandarkar pointed out the political reason behind the attack to Kalinga, but Romila Thapar emphasized on the economic importance of Kalinga in those days in the perspective of growing trading activities. The first 3 Mauryas were responsible for the unification of a large part of the country under their political hegemony. The process was completed by Aśoka, and after that, leaving the policy of Vaidhighosha, he followed the policy of Dhammaghosha, which was a unique state policy in world history. With the decline of tribal life and the corresponding division of society into caste classes, the tribal militia was naturally replaced by the standing army, whose importance was duly recognized in this period. A legal and judicial system, an important weapon of coercion in the hands of any ruling class, was organized in this period. These developments were mostly confined to the monarchical states, which were concentrated in the fertile Gangetic plain. These states were different from the so-called republics or Gana. So it can be said that after 6th century BCE, a new era of Indian politics was started through the formation of the new states. So this is the end of today's discussion. Subscribe our channel, like our video and comment. Listen to our podcast episodes. Follow our official Facebook page, Twitter handle and Instagram. For any query, feel free to mail us. For details, see the description.